Today we are going to solve quadratic equations by factoring. That first blank, an equation in the form ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, or any equation where the highest power is 2 is called a quadratic equation. A standard form of a quadratic equation is any equation with the highest power of 2 that is set equal to 0. And you can see the first example there, that x squared minus x minus 2 equals 0. Once you factor the equation, like you see in the next piece, x minus 2x plus 1, that is now called the factored form. Once you factor it, what you do is you set both factors equal to 0, and then you solve for x. What you get are x equals 2 and x equals negative 1. These are known as the roots of the equation. And this is what we will be doing today during the video lesson. Let's look at our first example. It says x squared minus 4x plus 3 equals 0. First step we're going to do is make sure it's set equal to 0 or it's in standard form. It is. The next step is to factor it. And this is going to factor 2. We do our double bubble. X squared, that first term, only factors to x and x. Factors of 3, or another way to think of it, two numbers that multiply to 3 are 3 and 1. You need to multiply to a positive 3, but add or subtract to a negative 4. Your options are plus plus or minus minus in order to get to a positive 3. In this case, it's going to be minus minus to get to that negative 4. Once you factor it, you set both your factors equal to 0. And you solve for x. On this one we add 3, so we get x equals 3. On this one we have to add the 1, so x equals 1. 3 and 1 are your answers, or the roots of the quadratic equation. Next one, same idea, let's factor it. Factors of 24 are 12 and 2, 6 and 4, and probably 8 and 3. So we have a lot of factors, but they have to add or subtract to a negative 10. And actually the ones that are going to work are 12 and 2. If you take a negative 12 and add 2, you're going to get a negative 10. Negative 12 times positive 2 is negative 24. Once you factor it, you set your factors equal to 0. So you'll get x equals 12. Here, set this factor equal to 0 and solve for x, subtract the 2, you get x equals negative 2. And you're done there. Now those first two weren't too bad because they're already in standard form. These next three are not in standard form yet, so we have to force them to be in standard form, and then we will do the same thing we did before. So for this first one, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to distribute that x into both pieces. So we'll get 4 minus x squared plus negative x times negative 3 is a positive 3x equals 0. I am going to write it highest power to lowest power. I do notice here that I have a negative x squared. So what I'm technically going to do is move this whole left-hand side to the right-hand side, because that's going to force that x squared to be a positive, as well as I'll write it in the correct order after I move them. So I'm going to subtract the 4, add the x squared, and subtract the 3x to both sides. When I move it over, write it highest power to lowest power, I would have x squared minus 3x minus 4 equals 0. From there we factor it because it's set equal to 0. Factors of 4 are 2 and 2, 4 and 1. We will use 4 and 1 in order to add or subtract to a negative 3. I have to have a negative 4 and a positive 1 to get to a negative 3. Set both factors equal to 0. And you will get x equals 4 and x equals negative 1. Moving over to the next problem, what I'm going to do is I'm going to set it equal to 0. Whenever you see something squared, the first step most of the time will be to set it equal to 0. Now I see that my x squared piece is positive, so I'm going to choose to move the right hand side to the left hand side to keep that x squared positive. So I'm going to subtract the 12 and subtract the x. Writing it highest power to lowest power, I'll have a 2x squared. Negative x minus x is negative 2x. Minus 12 equals 0. To make this one easier to factor, it's probably easier to take out a GCF. Well, the GCF here is a 2. So when I take a 2 out first, I would be left with x squared minus x minus 6. Then I can just factor the inside. X squared factors to x and x. Factors of 6 are 5 and 1, 3 and 2. We have to use 3 and 2 because I need to add or subtract to a negative 1. The way I get a negative 1 is with a negative 3 and a positive 2. Split it, set all your factors equal to 0. So when I set 2 equal to 0, that never happens, so we cross it off. Then I'm going to say x minus 3 equals 0, so x equals 3. And then I'll say x plus 2 equals 0, so x equals negative 2. Okay, one more here for practice. The first thing I do need to do is I need to distribute that 3x. So distributing 3x into parentheses will give me 3x squared minus 30x plus 80 equals 5. The next thing I have to do is put it in standard form, and the way I do that is by subtracting the 5, setting it equal to 0. So I'll have 3x squared minus 30x plus 75 equals 0. Finally from there, again, just like the previous problem, I can take out a GCF. The GCF here is a 3, and I'd be left with x squared minus 10x plus 25 equals 0. And now that inside parentheses there, I can break it down or factor it further. X squared breaks down to x and x. Factors of 25 are 25 and 1 and 5 and 5. I will use 5 and 5 because I need to add or subtract to a negative 10. The way I get negative 10 is minus 5 minus 5. Once you factor it, you set all your factors equal to 0, and I'm just going to show it over here. You say 3 equals 0, which just like the previous problem doesn't happen. You say x minus 5 equals 0, and when you solve for x, you get x equals 5. And the same thing over here. And you get x equals 5. And that's it. What I would like you to do right now is to try the 3 do now problems.